Welcome to this Wednesday, July 8th edition of Islandstats Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me are co-hosts Stacey Babb and Gary Gaza Moreno. Well, first of all, Gary, 2 days ago, and now we're joined by the one and only juggling Jason. But Gary, 2 days ago, your team was in action, pulled out a 1-0 win over Everton. I just want to say congratulations. And being that Juggler showed up, I want to say congratulations to Manchester United, who back-to-back 5 love wins. And obviously, Stacey, what did your team do?
Hold on.
Not 5 love, but scoring 5 goals in 2 games. In the 2
hold
games
on, but the highlight of the last game was what that guy did to Maguire. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
Did you see that? You didn't see that?
I did not see it.
And what was the highlight of your last game?
I'm sure Jason did.
You didn't score and your teammates are fighting each other?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We came out with the victory. That was important.
Some call that passion.
The guy made Maguire look like a schoolboy. Through his legs in the back of the net.
For you next week, Earl, to send the na, hey, goodbye to any European championship next year, brother, man.
We continue, please, Earl. Enough of this.
Well, last night at the Barclay Institute, the Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation hosted the Sports Awards. And, of course, we all know that the Female Athlete of the Year was named Jessica Lewis. Jessica Lewis, we know in 2019, had an awesome year, display at the Parapan Games, winning 3 medals. Let's get a bit of what she said following the announcement last night.
Wow, where do I even begin? This is absolutely incredible. Growing up with my disability wasn't always easy, but sports gave me a way to see past that. I've dedicated my life to being an athlete and growing into a strong and capable person that will stop at nothing until my dreams are achieved. Receiving this award is definitely one of those dreams that has always been at the top of my list. Being able to create a life that allows me to represent our beautiful island has truly been the greatest gift. But I also want to acknowledge that this day is not only big for me, but it's big for parasport and the journey to get to equal recognition. The heart, determination, and talent that athletes all have ingrained in them is in every type, form, and size of athlete who all give everything they have for their country. I'm so incredibly grateful to have such a powerful and strong country behind me. This award doesn't just have my name on it, but every single person and organization that has supported, guided, and helped the 67-pound woman become Bermuda's Senior Female Athlete of the Year for 2019. Thank you to the Bermuda Paralympic Association, to my sponsors, Renaissance Free, to Coach Curtis, to Karen and her family for being my family in Canada, to Coach Lisa and teammates Nan, Austin, and Isaiah, to Victor, my trainer, to everyone at Athletics Canada, to Winreach Bermuda, to the most incredible family and friends, and our dear departed Coach Ken. We did it! To the outstanding group of female athletes nominated in this category, congratulations. We are a small island, but we have a very fierce group of talent. Congratulations to both the Junior Athletes of the Year as well as the Male Athlete of the Year. While 2020 is not the season that we had all hoped for, we can all take pride in knowing that our athlete spirit of grit and determination will help us get through it and come out stronger than ever. Tokyo is waiting for us. Keep believing, keep dreaming, and keep overcoming. Thank you.
That was a bit of Jessica. And of course, the Male Athlete of the Year was Tyler Butterfield. Tyler Butterfield has won the Male Athlete of the Year on a number of occasions. I got a chance to speak with him following the announcement. Let's get a bit of what Tyler had to say following the announcement.
Yeah, I mean, it's always an honor. It's an honor to be selected for the Achievement Award. And so I was super happy to be even nominated. And then to win, there's so many athletes in Bermuda, and we're all proud to represent Bermuda. We want to represent Bermuda well. We want to represent ourselves well. And so, yeah, to be nominated and then to win is always a great achievement. 2019 was a special year for me because I'm coming to the end. And so I wasn't really sure. At the beginning of the year, I went and did a running race. And then I lowered the Bermuda Marathon record, which was great. And then obviously wasn't 100% sure about the triathlon career. But over the summer, got fit on all three and entered some races later in the year and won my first Ironman, which was Latin American champs in Cozumel. And set a new personal record for the Ironman and had the fastest Ironman for the year. So it's sort of all just the last race of the season just came together. I had some good ones along the way. And it was one of those dream years. Like it didn't really have huge goals at the beginning, but just put one step in front of the other. And sort of did that thing like doing your best the next week and then the next week and the next week. And it became probably my best year ever. So, it's a great honor to win. It always is. And I know my time is coming to an end. So someone's going to take it away soon and I'll probably never get it again. So I'm going to relish the opportunities I get.
Well, the sport of swimming and the sport of golf were the winners for the junior female and male athletes of the year, as Elon Daly and Kenny LaJour were named the junior female and junior male athletes of the year. So again, congratulations to them all. It was a fantastic year for them in 2019, and we look forward to what they can produce in 2021, because obviously 2020 is kind of a let go year of anything that we could have possibly been able to do. But just looking back, how do you think, Stacey, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel the rest of the year will go in sports?
Pretty much, I guess, the rest of the year, well, certain sports already practice social distance, cricket, also motocross, stuff like that. It's going to be limited, but it'll still continue on. People need their sports, the day-to-day sports, and they've been without for a couple of months now, so it's time to get back to it.
Gary, what about you? How do you think sports will go?
Pardon me, Il, didn't quite hear that.
How do you think sports will go for the remainder of the year? I see you got the England tour for the West Indies up behind you, so I know what you're anxious to see.
Yeah, you know that's what I'm chomping on the bed, hoping to see a little bit of while I work tomorrow. Hope my boss isn't listening. I think for the remainder of the year, sports is like what we're seeing in the States right now. They're talking about the bubble for the NBA. Baseball is coming back. Even ice hockey is coming back. We're seeing everything being done on a somewhat restricted basis in terms of there are not going to be any fans. The players are going to be living at the facilities where the games are going to be played under severe restrictions, or stringent restrictions rather, where they won't be allowed to leave the bubble or leave the location where the games are being held. I was looking at ESPN today, and even the reporters who are in the facility, they're not being allowed to leave. They're being tested on a daily basis and such. So COVID-19, again, dictating what the sporting picture, the land is going to look like from a sporting perspective. So in terms of events taking place and such, it's just going to be a change from what we were expected. And I know that's become, the norm that we're hearing now. It's almost a bore to hear it anymore. But it is what it is, and we're just going to have to get used to that. I mean, even looking at the EPL, I was talking to my nephew, Marcus Scotland, the other day, and he was saying how difficult it is to even get adjusted to not seeing the fans in the stands, and it really takes away from the atmosphere. But again, it's the new normal.
Juggler, your thoughts?
Sport will always be sport. The athletes want to compete. I think what's going to be interesting to see the athletes, especially when there are sports Gary just mentioned just now with EPL, or how athletes are going to make out when they're used to having fans, when they're used to having home field advantages. You see that, need the crowd to uplift you when you're down. Some of those sports, those athletes, when they need that extra motivation, they get it from the crowds. Now you can see the restrictions of crowds, or sometimes no crowds at all. How do these athletes react with the special restrictions? A lot of these players can't come and go as they would like when they're off the field or off the playing surface. How do they train? How do they keep up with the regimen that they've been used to for many years in training? So those things are coming into play, where especially I've heard with the NBA that once they're in the bubble, they're restricted to do not too many things besides stay inside, really. So how often do they get to go, take, for instance, if they have a bad shooter night, you know what, I'm going to go down to the gym and just shoot. Well, probably right now you cannot do that. So it's going to be interesting how the players and the athletes react, not just from the restrictions, but how it's a change of their regimen. And to see mentally, how do they get along? You see in the EPL, these games are coming fast and furious, and you see, not everybody can get up. You see the music being piped in a lot of these stadiums, but I'm pretty sure, these players are running to the flagpole to celebrate with the flagpole. So, I mean, hey, I guess we're going to get used to it.
Well, we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by the president of the Bermuda Umpires Association, Mr. Oscar Andrade. We'll be back. Welcome back, and as promised, we would be joined by the Bermuda Umpires Association president, Mr. Oscar Andrade. Oscar, the season is about to get underway this coming weekend. There's a lot of stipulations on fans and even stipulations on some of the things that can be done on the field. Just a few questions regarding umpires. Where do we stand now with the numbers of umpires we have available to us?
So towards the end of last season, we had around 20 umpires that were active through the season to various degrees. Probably about 5 or 6 of those didn't do a whole lot of games, and then the bulk of the games being done by the other 10 to 12 umpires. We're somewhat limited in that traditionally umpires have attracted police officers and firemen and other folks that do shift work. So we have some of our members that are not available every weekend for clashes with work, or they've worked all night and trying to get up in the morning to get to a game can be difficult.
Having the fact that the cricket board now is looking to have double headers, does this kind of help out a little bit as far as the scheduling of umpires?
So not really, because what we're doing this season, or what we're going to try and do this season, is not allocate double headers to umpires, just to try and cut down how much contact they're having with different people every time they turn up to a field. So the plan is, if we can, is to do 2 umpires for the first game and a second set of umpires for the second game.
That's good thinking. And the last question from me is referring to the rules of the ICC have put in place. Obviously, no saliva on the ball. In the event that a player does do that, are we mandated to then change the ball, or what is the rules and regulations around that?
So we've been having discussions with the cricket board for a little while now with protocols around the game and getting on and off the field, etc. Interactions between umpires and scorers, umpires and captains, even something like the toss that we take for granted in terms of how that's going to work. Some of those are still being discussed with the clubs. So I'm really not in a position to say exactly what's going to happen with the ball. We've made some suggestions around players intentionally using saliva on the ball and what protocol we would follow after that in terms of warnings and penalty runs, censures, whatever. It's still to be determined.
Okay. Anyone got any other questions for the president of the local umpires?
Just one quick question for you, Mr. Andre. Thanks for joining us tonight. Firstly, you mentioned that a lot of the umpires, they're involved in organizations like the Bermuda Police Service and Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service. And of course, these individuals are now still caught up in the COVID-19 emergency situation. What initiatives or what any intention of trying to attract younger individuals or young people into the umpiring fold here on the island, because we continue to hear that there's a shortage of umpires and such?
So again, we've tried on our own. We've tried with the cricket board to attract folks to courses. We were actually running an umpires course at the beginning of March, just before the shelter in place and everything started to stop those normal going-ons. We had as many as 4 express interest. We had 2 attend the first week, and then the course got axed. We tried to do an online course. I tried to develop a course over Zoom, and there was some discussion again with the cricket board around the under-19s, perhaps taking that course with a view to them umpiring junior cricket at least as a start, to perhaps get them interested in umpiring later on. And we attempted with the cricket board to get some interest from club members to fill in where we didn't have umpires to do a particular game, where there would at least be club personnel that were trained to a point to be able to run a T20. And again, it never seemed to get anywhere.
Oscar, I want to thank you for joining us also, but I also just want to touch base on you once again. Thanks actually for coming back into the fold of being an umpire. I know a few years ago there was an incident with you and you left the game regarding some bad behavior in the field.
Can I just clear that up, seeing as we got a chance to clear that up? Seems to be some confusion over that. What I did, I stepped back from premier level cricket. I actually did quite a bit of cricket even after that county game. A lot of charity stuff, some junior stuff. Never really stepped away. I just took a break from senior and from county, and that literally was the end of the season only.
Yes. Okay, so just going back on that, we're just talking about the lack of umpires. What would be some of the biggest challenges to get people to come into to take up umpiring, especially at the local level and at the amateur level? What are some of the biggest challenges now you as a president looking to work on and hopefully get the right people in, because we do need umpires for the game?
There's a few things that happen around umpiring that I think dissuades general man on the street from being interested. Some of the older players, guys that have retired, the ones that haven't got involved with their own clubs as far as coaching or managing goes, some of them have picked up other sports. They're retiring. They're playing sports that have less stress around them. And the biggest thing with cricket, other than the T20 format, it is a commitment. It's a time commitment to stay up with the regulation changes. It's not just the cricket on the weekend. We have an umpires meeting every Tuesday night during the season. There's board hearings on the Thursday night for any disciplinary matters. And then Saturday and Sunday itself, even if we're talking about a 50-over game starting at 11, the umpires arrive at the ground at 10. That means you're leaving home at 9 something, and the game can go on till around 7:30. So by the time you get home from all of that, it's 8:15, 8:30. It's pretty much the whole day. And again, because of the numbers, a lot of us are doing Saturday and Sunday, both days.
You talked about changes. I believe last year there was a change in hoping to help some of these umpires. The card system that we normally see in football. Did you guys get to implement the card system to any players that were
So the card system was actually introduced in terms of grassroots cricket in the UK and in some other countries, New Zealand, Australia. But and we had it in play here for a very, very short while. The ICC themselves then recognized that there was a grassroots issue or an issue with cricket in general, down to the grassroots level. And they went away from the card system and they instituted a modified Law 42, players' conduct. And that law does stipulate the ability for an umpire to be able to, for certain offenses, to send a player off for various number of overs, depending on the format, right up to a full ejection. Since those regs have been changed and put in place, we have not had an occasion to have to do that in Bermuda.
And one final question from me, guys. Oscar, this is a light question for you. Eastern Continental Cup match, which one you really going to miss this year?
I like Cup match. I've had the fortunate pleasure of being involved in 5 of them as an umpire, three on field and 2 off. And they're always extremely memorable. It's the best seat in the house to watch a game if you like cricket. That's probably the biggest thing I can tell you to try and attract somebody that's an umpire. If you like cricket, there's no better spot in the world to watch a game.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Andre, I do want to thank you for joining us and shedding some light on things that will be for the upcoming season. Obviously, a lot of work to be done by the men the men and women in the middle, because we do have female umpires as well, and we look forward to a good year of cricket for you guys in the middle as well as the players. So good luck.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back with more Islandstats Sports Show after this message from our sponsor. Well, guys, we've come to the segment where we get a chance to hear what's going on throughout the Caribbean. Let's join our Caribbean reporters to get an update. Good day, Ann. I hope all is well. I see in Barbados that all sports will get started to operate again. Even if there's a second wave, it was instructed that people have to learn to live with how to do business nowadays. So it'd be good that sports gets up and running. Also, sports associations in Barbados got an insight into how they can protect themselves. And also, big loss for West Indies, but even a bigger loss for Barbados with Sir Everton Weekes passing last week. Can we just get an update on those, please?
It's always so good to hear from you, Earl. And yes, everything is well in Barbados, and I do hope everything is well over there with you in Bermuda. Sports is back in Barbados. Sports is back in full swing. all federations, all associations, all competitions, everybody within the sporting fraternity can go about their sporting activities with some level of normalcy, and they have been capitalizing on it. This past weekend has truly been a sporting weekend on the island, starting with cricket. When you went around the island in the various communities, you would have seen the guys in their whites as the Division 2 and Masters tournaments were restarted. And for them, it was really, really important, to get out there and to get the fans and to get the spectators and even to get some much needed rust off as they hit the crease and take to the field. So the Masters and Division 2 competitions actually were restarted. What I should tell you is that the elite division would have been completed before the COVID-19 shutdown. So therefore, there was no need for the top flight cricketers to actually be in action. And of course, we do have many of our players over in England with the West Indies team. So that level of cricket was completed. So Division 2 and Masters got going, which we call intermediate, and the Masters got going in cricket. Volleyball also got going, and volleyball got going in a very good way in that they usually would compete at the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium, which is one of our main sporting arenas. However, they've decided to take volleyball into the communities. So the various clubs are able to play at their home courts. Therefore, if you live in a community and your team is playing another team, instead of having to trek all the way over to the gymnasium, you were able to take in the volleyball action at your home court. And many persons love that and capitalize on it. Just take a walk over to the court and support your home team. So they've taken the option of playing volleyball in the community to get persons more involved in the sports. Some other sports have also indicated exactly when they will reopen. The dominoes season will get going on July the 12th, as well as the Aquatic Center, which is our main center for the Barbados Association. That's the Barbados Amateur Swimming Association. They will reopen on the 27th of July. So the Aquatic Center, the swimming pool, will be back in action from the 27th. Prior to that, or at this stage, the swimmers are still using beach training as their way of getting into the water, but soon they'll be back in the pool. So from that end, things are definitely, looking up for our sports. And given that sports has started or restarted in Barbados, it was important for the Ministry of Health and the government to ensure that it's still done in a manner where the safety and health protocols are in place. So the Barbados Volleyball Association took the decision to host a special, meeting for all the federations, a special, you could call it town hall meeting. And it was chaired by the Czar of COVID for Barbados, Richard Carter, who ironically is a former national volleyballer. And what he basically wanted to impart to the various federations and sportsmen and women is that you can go about sports in a normal way, even if there's a second wave coming into the island, as you would have mentioned, but at the same time, be cognizant of how you do things. And he gave them 4 elements to the safety of sport at this stage. He calls it the 4 elements of the safety protocols for COVID-19. Planning, preparing, responding, and recovery. Those are the 4 pillars that he chose. He said plan for if the eventuality happens that there's a shutdown again. Plan as to how you're going to ensure that your sport is done in a way that is safe for not only the players, but also spectators and officials. Then prepare. Make sure that your venues have all the necessities to ensure that protocols can exist and exist effectively. And then to respond, if something happens, how do you respond? How do you what happens if possibly there is a case that is surrounded by your federation? How do you control that? How do you respond to persons having a negative outlook on possibly sports starting back? Those are the things. And of course, recovery. If something happens, how do you recover? And how do you recover now from COVID-19 moving into this new phase where things will change? So the associations were able to get a first-hand discussion with the czar of COVID-19 for the island and, how to best focus on getting sports active as it is now, and definitely to put it in a perspective where we are not only back to sports, but where we are doing it in a way that we are safe and that we keep the numbers down. We flatten the curve. We want it to just be totally flattened, period. And yes, it was also a week where we lost one of our sporting icons. Anybody who would have interacted with Sir Everton Weeks, myself included, he was such a warm and welcoming individual. He was always approachable. He always had a smile. And what I liked most about Sir Everton Weeks is that he would have always wanted to pass on or impart to the young cricketers coming up the techniques, the values, and the elements that made him such a legend of the sport. He would have passed away at the age of 95, which means he had a very strong innings. We thought that he had a very strong life innings to pass at 95. He was ailing for some time in the recent months, but definitely within the past few years, no matter the fact that he was well in his 90s, he was always out and about, and he really made a contribution not only to the West Indies, but specifically here to his native Barbados. Now, Sir Everton had a first-class career that spanned 20 years from 1944 to 64, and then he had a test career for the West Indies 1948 to 58. When you hear Sir Everton Weeks, the 3 W's must come to mind. He was the last surviving 3 W's, the other 2 being Sir Frank Worrell and Sir Clyde Walcott. And he, as I said, he batted quite well in his lifetime. And, he has now passed on to join his fellow brothers. But so the last of the 3 W's have left us. But definitely not without making their indelible mark on the sport. And if you come to Barbados, you would know that there's the 3 W's Oval at the University of the West Indies, which his name is a part of. And there's also the 3 W's stand at Kensington Oval, which is the mecca of cricket. And they have also, embraced him as one of the greatest icons and legends. And he was knighted by Barbados in 1995. He also has the Gold Crown of Merit as well as the Order of the British Empire as well. Now, Sir Everton, as I would have mentioned, would have given back a lot to cricket, especially at the youth level. And so the Barbados Cricket Association has the Sir Everton Weeks Centre of Excellence. And that Centre of Excellence is responsible for developing the youth players, many of whom at this stage would have gone through from Barbados level, playing at the Barbados elite level, to go on to play for the CPL. Some of them went on to play for the West Indies. And, Sir Everton has always had a hand in that. We do really miss him. He, as I said, was always an approachable person, a person who was warm and welcoming. And, in his honor, the government of Barbados has awarded him an official state funeral. We don't know yet. I guess the details of the planning are now, in motion, because he would have only passed late last week. But definitely we have lost one of our greatest sporting icons. But at the age of 95, he made his mark. And though he is missed, we know that it was a lifetime that was, well received by all Barbadians, and we do really miss him. And we always extend condolences to his family, his friends, the entire cricket fraternity across the world. Honestly, I would say may he rest in peace, and I will miss him and that smell, because he was always a nice person to be around. So on that note, Barbados, as I said, we're back into full sporting ways, and I do hope that Bermuda soon follows suit. And I wish you all the best. So thanks again for having me for another week, and I look forward to seeing you or hearing you next week.
Good day, Earl Basden. This is Vernon A. Springer from Vast Sports Media in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda, and the wider part of the OECS. I come to you with good news that the West Indies will start their defense of the Wisden Trophy West Indies will be led by Jason Holder, and England will have a new captain in Ben Stokes, the 81st captain that will captain the England Test team. So this is going to be a pretty interesting situation where you have two of the top all-rounders in world cricket going head-to-head in the first Test match, England versus the West Indies. What can we look for in terms of the West Indies lineup? Well, for sure, Shannon Gabriel has been elevated into the test squad, and so based on all reports that we've been hearing so far coming out of England, it sounds like the head coach Phil Simmons certainly will go with experience, and so Shema Holder might just have to wait his test debut. But he's a good find, and we can expect the West Indies to be at firepower. The batting is going to be a major concern. The bowling is going to be the West Indies' strength, and they have a bowling lineup that is going to be led by Kemar Roach, Shannon Gabriel, Alzari Joseph, Captain Jason Holder, Roston Chase, and Rakeem Jimbo Cornwall. When you look at that bowling lineup, I'm guaranteed, and I can say to you that, hey, when you look around in world cricket, they certainly can get you 20 wickets on any day. But we never know what the weather conditions are going to be like in England, so we just got to wait and see what it's going to be. But in the meantime, hey, the Black Lives Matter movement will be on show in this important series between England and the West Indies, and we are glad for them. In terms of football, we know that Bayern Munich has won the championship in Germany, so we say congratulations to all the Bayern Munich fans. And when we look around, we know that the CPL is bound for Trinidad and Tobago 2020. Also, in the build-up before the CPL, you know that elections are already going to be called in Trinidad and Tobago. We just had elections in Anguilla. There's a new chief minister, Dr. Ellis Webster. So the man himself, the outgoing Premier Victor Banks, who served for 40 years, he lost to a newcomer. So I think maybe he might just hang up his political boots. So we want to be able to salute Victor Banks for his contribution to politics in the Caribbean. And then we look around, we know that elections is also pending in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where as we look closer to the neighbors, we see St. Lucia's T10 League is gleeing and really having a great time. Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, they too also will be having some sort of cricket coming on unfold. But when we look around the Caribbean Football Union, we also see that Randy Harris is cautiously threatening that, hey, folks who want to get back in contact with football in the Caribbean, hey, they got to be very, very, very careful. But like I said, hey, the entire focus now will be on the West Indies versus England series. We know for sure that Lewis Hamilton is fighting a serious cause concerning the Black Lives Matter movement. He's also very vocal about some of the folks who have been very quiet concerning what is happening with racial justices across the entire world. So that's another spectrum. Saw a little piece from Linford Christie, who says that we really got to stamp out this racism in sports business. So everybody's talking about it. But, hey, we're here. So what you can do, folks, listening to Earl Basden, is that, hey, you can check out the Vast Sports Media platform. There's a great panel. Vinod Manchan, Marley Richards, former Leeward Islands record holder, left-handed batsman, the son of Sir Vivian Isaac Alexander Richards. Go to Facebook and check out Vast Sports Media platform, and you'll see the launch of the On the Ball series. This is Vernon Springer from Vast Sports Media for Earl Basden in Bermuda.
welcome back. That was the report from the overseas reporters. A lot of things happening, Gary. Like you, Vernon A is looking forward to what will materialize over the next few days between England and the West Indies, of course. But on Monday, it was reported Bermuda long jumper Tyrone Smith over the weekend posted a Twitter post suggesting that World Athletics join with some athletes and kind of avoid having events in China right now due to the unrest that they're having with Hong Kong. I got a chance to speak with Tyrone. Let's get a little bit of what he said, but I want to come back and see what you guys' thought process is regarding what he's suggesting. Well, Tyrone Smith, you posted a message on Twitter over the weekend that kind of caught the eye of World Athletics, who has responded to your message to avoid China after they have made a ruling, or Hong Kong making a ruling that kind of puts folks on the back burner kind of thing, or restricts them in a sense. Give us a sense of what your message was and why you feel the way you feel.
Yeah, so essentially, Hong Kong has been given a level of freedom that the rest of China hasn't seen ever since the British handed it back over to local rule, I think, in 1997. And since then, it's become kind of the pearl of Asia. That's the financial center of that part of the world. And it's been able to accomplish those things by having that level of freedom. That's generally how it works. And by enforcing this new law that has been obviously in protest for months. I mean, they've been protesting. They've been before we had the marches all over the world for George Floyd. Hong Kong looked equally as bad, worse. It looked worse with all of the rubber bullets and the water hoses and the tear gas. And these people were protesting for their very freedom, their very liberty, just like across the world now, people of color are doing the same thing in response to the violent actions against African Americans in the United States. So my message came from a place of solidarity and just really understanding and feeling where the people of Hong Kong are coming from in terms of wanting to be able to live their life with some form of liberty, especially because there are people who grew up. Let's say if you were born in 1997, you are an adult now, you're of age, and you've had freedoms your entire life that at the stroke of a pen have been taken away from you. So I saw the response from World Athletics, and I wholeheartedly respect their right to say that. I just think it's not really a political issue. Human rights, racism, these aren't political issues. These are just like right from wrong. It's kind of black and white. And I understand wanting to protect the brand and all that, but that's kind of the point. Too many people have been trying to protect their brands for far too long, and people are suffering around the world. And I just think it'd be nice if an organization like World Athletics or the International Olympic Committee, for example, would stand up for what's right.
When you look at how they responded, because they did respond in the fact that something more political, would you want athletes that kind of follow your message? Because if the athletes take the stance, I think kind of World Athletics will be kind of forced in a way, such as what the Black Lives Matter movement has been. It's forced governments to change their way of operating, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the athletes do have the power to an extent. But the thing about track and field and World Athletics is it's a slightly different type of organization where, there's 10 more people, there's 20, there's 100 more people waiting for you to say something that won't let you get meets anymore. Because, my PB is 8:34. There's probably 40 guys between 8:15 and 8:50 who could be at the same meet that I could be at. So it's really hard to speak out, but because you know that at any moment you might stop getting track meets really quickly. But you know what, Earl? I'm 35 years old. I've been doing this a really long time. I've been to just about every major track meet, almost every single Diamond League, and I've had a good go. So I feel like if I miss out on a few meets, no big deal. I mean, it's hard enough for me to get them anyway, so I might as well speak my mind, and maybe I can galvanize the rest of the athletes into action, because now is a time where everyone's starting to wake up. And I think we can keep this momentum going if we remember what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, is that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if everyone can recognize that, every minority population, whether it's Black or gay or trans or the people in Hong Kong, if everyone can realize, or women, if we band together, it's unstoppable. As a group, we are unstoppable. So yeah.
Well, let's see where your message takes us down the road, because obviously right now everybody's watching what everybody's saying, and the fact that you got World Athletics to respond to you is a start of something, and you may end up with quite a few of the athletes on the wagon saying, I won't go to China, or I wouldn't go to these places because of. And if that's the case, then job well done. And it's always a good thing to start.
Absolutely. We have to start the conversation. I know it's a huge issue, and it's incredibly complicated. But at some point, we've got to start the conversation. And, we have to stand up for human rights violations. We have to stand against that, united as a free world. And it's not just in Hong Kong, it's all over the place. But I have a degree in history, and I like to stay. I've been woke for a while, as they say these days. And so every now and then I like to bring the attention to issues that maybe people aren't talking about. And the unrest in Hong Kong has been under the radar since probably obviously everything that's happened here in the United States, and with COVID especially. So I just thought, now that they tried to underhandedly pass this law when the world's attention wasn't as focused on it, let's see if we can bring some more attention to this issue, and maybe the world and the sporting bodies of the world can pressure China into, I don't know, relaxing or eradicating this law and just letting the people of Hong Kong live their lives in freedom the way they have for the past 30 years.
All right. Well, let's stay in touch, and hopefully your dream of making sure that they can be free to make decisions on their own is given in a short space of time.
Thanks, Earl.
All right. Good talking to you. Well, Stacey, you've had a chance to not only hear but see some of the stuff that was mentioned and what World Athletics came back with. Obviously, Tyrone is saying that they shouldn't make it political, but that's the way the World Athletics looked at it. But it's more of a humanity thing, with especially things going on as well around the world with Black Lives Matter. But prior to Black Lives Matter, the unrest was really, really strong in Hong Kong. Looking at what was said by both Tyrone and World Athletics, what's your thoughts on the process?
Well, pretty much in agreement with both to a certain degree. At the end of the day, if World Athletics is going to stand up against injustice, against all people, it's important you make certain moves. But what type of moves should you make? We're always known for international sports, especially Olympics, World Cup, to be platforms where athletes have spoken out about injustices, and it's reached millions of people around the world. So in certain realm, I agree with Tyrone, but I also agree with Mr. Sebastian in reference to what he believes about not pulling out of having the games in Shanghai. Because at the end of the day, how many athletes don't want to go to Shanghai? How many athletes are going to use the platform of going to Shanghai to further that political injustice that is going on in Hong Kong?
Juggler, how do you think, or how do you feel about the situation?
I'm sort of torn, because obviously as an association, you got to look out for the safety and the security of all the athletes that you represent. But as you know, guys, money comes down to money. If they get the pushback from major sponsors who do not want to be a part of those games or those competitions, then they will not happen. There, pretty simple. With this climate now, which is so it's so tense that you see now for years looking at the NFL with the Washington Redskins for years that the owner said he is not changing the name. Well, you see what's going to probably happen within the next couple of months before the season starts. And I think that's all due to the pushback from Nike withdrawing, their jerseys and everything. And also some, I believe, their main sponsor, FedEx, the naming of the field. So I hate to say this, guys, unless somebody who's got major money withdraws or threatens to withdraw sponsorship, I hate to say, I probably think games will go on, regardless.
Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree with Juggler. It comes down to the bottom line now. And should a major sponsor, in fact, decide to pull out of the sponsorship of those events, we're definitely going to see a change of heart by Sebastian Coe and company. But this brings us back to the age-old question, separation of church and state. Now we're trying to see separation of sport and state. And sports have always been used as a political tool. I mean, if you look at the Cold War between Russia and the United States or even the Eastern Bloc countries, remember they used sports as a weapon, so to speak. When we had East Germany and those countries, but when there was East and West Germany, we had the East German athletes always trying to outdo countries in the West, and there was doping scandals at that time. Testing for doping and so on wasn't as prevalent as it is now. But sport has always played a major part in politics. Unfortunately, this is how I feel about it. You know how I feel about politics and such. I think Coe and they may have had an opportunity to make a statement here. And of course, Coe being English, he would be fully aware of the fact that I think it's a 50-year moratorium, if I can call it that certain rights were supposed to remain in place because, of course, Hong Kong was run by the British. And once it was handed back to the Chinese, there was supposed to be an agreement where things would remain, certain rights would remain in place for about 50 years. And we see China reneging on that now. I think Coe could have brought some kind of pressure to bear by not having the games there. As Stacey said, it could have impacted the athletes somewhat. But there are other countries where the diamond events are held. And I think they would have compensated very easily for not having that event in China.
Well, on the same premise, the CANOC, the Caribbean Association of National Olympic Associations president, has recently called for the rescinding of the ban for the two athletes who protested. I believe it was the 1972 Olympic Games, the two American athletes who were banned for life. He's asked the IOC to actually rescind those bans and then award the two their worth, medals of such. So we see things starting to change. We see things more being talked about, and of course, we'll stay up to date with how that materializes, because it was a big thing for these two to take the stand, as well as others prior to them making a political statement of injustice and then be banned right away. So, we look forward to seeing how the IOC will handle this most recent request and how World Athletics respond again to Tyrone and maybe other athletes who feel the same way, who will feel as if now's the time to speak out. If you want to make any change or you want to make things work a little different, now is the time, because everything's about to be moving. As Jason said, even with the Washington Redskins, for years people have been trying to get them to change that name and the refusal. But like you said, when money's involved, many things start to roll left and right. So we look forward to how these things evolve over the next few days, weeks, months, and of course years. This past weekend, we saw the end of yet another tennis tournament, the COVID Open, that saw Kirsten Salters and Trey Mallory emerge as male and female champions. Trey Mallory came from a set down to defeat Gavin Manders. Unfortunately, Gavin, that's his third straight loss in the final this year. The youngsters, would appear that the youngsters are now stepping it up. And of course, Kirsten, for a second final in a row, defeated Morgan Lightbourne, but this time in straight sets because those two had battles of 3 sets in their previous matches. But this one, I wouldn't say it was a little easier, but I think Kirsten made less mistakes in the match and capitalized on the mistakes that Morgan was making. Just the thought of having a sport like tennis back up and running, how do you think, and with cricket starting this weekend, how do you think people are looking, other sports are looking at possibly starting? I'll start with you, Jason.
I mean, once again, somebody's got to be the guinea pig, as they're sick, and test out all the restrictions. Personally, I feel that once it gets off the ground running, everybody's just going to follow suit. Athletes want to play. Players want to play. Players, you almost get addicted, and Stacey probably could attend to this. You almost get addicted to the adrenaline, and you see some players have a hard time dealing with it once their career is over, because they still are still addicted to that adrenaline, still addicted to that competition. So with tennis, you see the battles, you see the intense battles. It's amazing now to see the youngsters really confident against their, probably players they looked up to, but they look very confident. It's going to be interesting with cricket, how they're going to make out with all the restrictions and the field restrictions and the player restrictions and the umpire restrictions. But I think, like anything, after the first game or two or 3 matches or so, guys will get used to it. So I'm pretty sure the players who want to play, they will be there. The guys who want a summer off, well, I'll see you next year.
Stacey, Jason called you kind of Earl in that. I think he called you Earl in that.
Never mention Earl, Stacey.
He didn't call me Earl.
What did he call
you?
You?
Definitely didn't call me Earl.
Stacey would know what I'm talking about when you're finished playing. That's what he said. So what is that?
That's not considered to be old, actually. An injured individual could be young and the playing career could be over. So he didn't call me ill.
All right. So what's your thoughts on the season, with the end of the tennis tournament and the cricket season starting, other sports looking to maybe get started as well?
Well, with the sports that have like social distancing measures already in place, your cricket, your tennis, your motocross, those of that nature where it's not basically that physical contact, that contact sport, they could easily put in further matches when especially it comes to the spectators to assist with what the current climate is in the world. So start off with the sports, see how it goes, and then it'll be easier for the contact sports to pretty much decide how they're going to go about, like with cricket, how they restricted the overs. Is football going to restrict the amount of players on the field at one time locally to assist with dealing with the pandemic and preventing further transmission of, the disease and virus, whatever they want to call it, moving forward. So I just see it moving back into play, but in slower stages. Decreased numbers of players on the field with those contact sports. And that's pretty much it. People will adjust to what measures are currently in place. And then once we get past this hump in the world, we'll get back to semi-normal. Well, there's individuals that can transform their mind back to normal. But that's basically it.
And Mr. Moreno, your thoughts on restarting?
Well, we're moving into stage 4 now. The curfew is, I think, midnight to 5 o'clock, and hopefully there will not be a curfew in the next couple of weeks. Sports like tennis is easy to have, that separation. As Juggler said last week, you're way on that side of the net, I'm way on this side of the net, and never the two shall meet except to shake hands at the end of the game. But in sports like football and so on, with the lifting of the restrictions and entering phase 4, the further we get down the road, and the fact that there have been 0 positive results from the COVID-19 tests in recent weeks, I think we're going to be able to see a lot more of the contact sports coming into play. I think by the time we get round to football season, there may be restricted numbers on the field, but I firmly believe that we're going to be able to see full games coming into effect. Of course, they're saying that in the colder months, we could see a resurgence of the COVID-19 pandemic, the COVID-19 flu, because that is what it is. We could see a resurgence of it, but that is left to be seen. Of course, with the coming on stream of vaccine, they're saying it could happen by the end of the year. So, it's just a question of holding tight now and seeing what the developments are that would take place. But I firmly believe that come the start of the football season, we will be able to see full games being played. And, as you mentioned with the cricket, one of the things umpire Andre pointed out, the use of saliva on the balls we use. Those of us who played cricket, you wouldn't know anything about that, Earl. They put saliva on the ball to shine it, to get that ball to turn one way or the other. And not being able to do that, I can almost guarantee it. They won't do it on purpose, but they inadvertently are going to do it, thinking that that's the norm, and then we could have a problem. So it's going to be interesting to see how these things are enforced and how the players adapt to them. But I think we're on the verge of turning the corner in terms of seeing sport return to normal.
Well, I'm going to defend myself when you say shining the ball. We can't have too many shiny things on the field, so I'll leave that in my head. Well, folks, we have come to the end of this week's show. But before we go, I do want to wish Corey, my oldest son, Corey, happy birthday.
Corey!
Corey, done.
Happy birthday, Corey.
We're getting old, fellas and lady. We're getting old.
You.
Man, I remember Corey in short pants going to school, man.
Well, 22 today. How's that?
Wow.
There you go.
You're old, juggling. Got him back for you, Stacey.
Well, folks, do enjoy the rest of your night. Good night from the Islandstats Sports Show.
Yeah,
have a good one.
Top 10 this week, Gary.
Have a good evening.
Hope you stay in the top 10.